It was, I put out that tweet saying Bitcoin dominance has peaked, and it peaked. It went up, put in another 9, and I think it's going to continue to fall from here. So that's like the start of the alt season. But when I've been saying it for a while, is like, you know, people can write off ETH, they're ridiculous. ETH has enormous amounts going for it.
리얼비전의 대표 라울팔, 그리고 GMI의 매크로 총괄 줄리안 피텔, 두 명의 글로벌 전문가가 비트코인과 알트코인 시장의 현 상황을 냉철하게 분석합니다. 지금의 비트코인 조정은 과연 더 깊은 하락의 전조일까요? 그리고 알트코인 시장은 정말 조용히 끝나버린 걸까요? 두 전문가의 통찰, 그 핵심 내용을 함께 확인해 보시죠.
So what's interesting about that, I was looking at it this morning, is you know, that we have the same chart versus Bitcoin, right? 3 month on 3 month. So the 3-month rate of change, which is not in this pack. But that top point there, or the high, is actually August, which then stacks up with the V, which then stacks up. And so basically what here they would line up to say around August, we should see something, but we have to see, right? It really depends on what the dollar is doing. Because if I just shift,
but we're expecting financial conditions to continue to ease, right? Because we think there's another leg lower in the dollar. We think rates either stay flat or move lower.
Where are we here, right? So we're coming lower. Obviously, yesterday we moved a little bit higher, but I think that ultimately the trend's lower to Bloomberg. If we look at the dollar here, right? I mean, we've counted down to wave 5 and we had a 913.9. And this is basically where you and I were like, this is going to go higher. Then it came lower and then we unlocked a wave 2, or now we've unlocked a wave 3 of potentially 5 higher. I don't know if that plays out, but you can see that the counts are all stacking up here pretty heavily. So in the event that the dollar does move higher to, let's call it 104, which DMARC wave count suggests, which seems a bit high to me, but nevertheless, this would unlock that corrective period.
Which is looking like August into September, maybe. We don't know the length of it yet.
Yeah. So that's why I was saying at MIT, the next move in the dollar is going to tell us everything that we need to know about, you know, the ISM, you know, when that peaks out, everything else. But I think whether this goes higher or not over the medium term, not even medium term, I should say over the short term, we still think it goes lower.
Which sets us up for phase 3 of the banana zone. So phase 2 correction would be this. If it continues to trend sideways or a little bit stronger, that would be a corrective phase when everyone starts thinking it's all over, we'll give up now. And then we should get phase 3, which is the final leg in the dollar, potentially a leg lower in rates and the more speculative frenzy that comes at the last part of this.
And liquidity is actually rising if we talk about M2 versus the opposite, which was taking place here. What's your thought on this? I mean, because it has been, the market's been trading a bit.
Well, go to the M2 chart, and there's some wiggles in that chart that give us some clarity. You see, there's that nice wiggle that it's not uncommon to get a slight correction. Whether this correction runs further, I think it's just forming a flag.
You know, like, and here's the other point is like, yes, Bitcoin's oversold. Yes, overbought. Yes, equities are also overbought. But again, the last 2 times we triggered overbought readings, this was the boring zone. Remember, the long, drawn out boring zone. This was obviously Jan. But in both of these situations, you know, liquidity was draining. And here's an RSI overbought reading and the market just went higher. Like, it feels much more like this than either of these 2 events. You know what I mean?
It's just, I think everybody finds it frustrating because they want it just to go up every day or every week, and it just doesn't work that way. It goes in spurts, and if you miss those opportunities, which is why I don't like ever being out of the market, because you miss it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, which I found really funny is, I mean, Bitcoin's up like 50% off the lows or whatever it is, 40 something. And then the market drops 2%. And people were like, oh, you know, is it over? It's like, guys, calm down, you know?
비트코인과 달러 인덱스의 흐름, 그리고 이를 둘러싼 유동성 지표들을 현 시장 분석의 핵심 포인트로 짚었습니다. 이들은 비트코인의 3개월 수익률 고점이 8월이라는 점에 주목하며, 이는 ISM 지수와 유동성 등 주요 매크로 지표들과도 흐름이 맞물린다고 설명합니다. 관건은 달러의 방향성인데요. 단기적으로는 반등 여지가 있지만 중기적으로는 하락 추세가 이어질 가능성이 크다는 분석입니다. 특히 달러 인덱스가 104까지 상승할 경우 시장은 일시적인 조정 국면에 접어들 수 있어 주의가 필요합니다. 하지만 동시에 M2 유동성이 반등세를 보이고 있다는 점은 과거와 달리 조정 이후에도 다시 상승 동력이 붙을 수 있는 환경이 마련되고 있음을 시사합니다. 결국 지금은 정체 혹은 조정 구간처럼 보일 수 있지만 이를 지나면 유동성 주도의 마지막 상승 사이클, 이른바 바나나존 3단계로 진입할 가능성이 높다고 전망했습니다. 그리고 혹시 거래 수수료 절반을 다시 환급받는 방법 아직 모르시나요? 단 5분만 투자하면 평생 수수료 돌려받는 셀퍼럴, 선택이 아닌 필수입니다. 자세한 내용은 영상 더보기란을 확인해보세요.
And then XRP is boring, but this will explode at some point. This still feels contextually like the right chart, but I think that maybe the hack kind of put it down a little bit below the intraday closing highs, which I would have preferred it didn't. But even if you draw it through the lows, it looks fine. I also think that it's really clear if you kind of just look at it like this.
So firstly, Bitcoin dominance. This was try to get to the 9. It kind of would have been 9 that day. It was, I put out that tweet saying Bitcoin dominance has peaked, and it peaked. It went up, put in another 9, and I think it's going to continue to fall from here. So that's like the start of the alt season, but really it won't fall until we start getting below this kind of 61.5 level, something like this, 62. If it does that, then the much bigger game is at play, I think. I don't know whether that does, no, we kind of had a trend line here.
Well, if that's right, we just retested and push lower.
That's right. So that's one, that's interesting to me. So I think that ETH just continues to look good from every level.
There's that inverse head and shoulders.
Yeah, the inverse head and shoulders is a bit all my scaling screwed. It all looks good. I mean, it's just rejected here. Maybe this all comes back down to 2,300 or so before then finally making the break. Doesn't feel wildly unlikely. And then because those are doing that, everything's doing the same. I mean, ETH Bitcoin, same. There's like an inverse head and shoulders here. Let's just move that. Somewhere here is like an inverse head and shoulders. I think, again, this is the classic sign of Altseason. I think somewhere here, once it breaks this, then we're going back up here. And that'll be the start of something much bigger, I think, finally. And that's the classic sign of some sort of Altseason. So there's not really much to report right now. As you said, things are kind of in this corrective pattern. Doesn't look a long-term thing. It looks like it's kind of next week or something like that. Nothing in crypto concerns me in any way, shape or form. It's just chopping around here. Feels like we're just going to be weaker for a bit, digesting various bits of news before we have the next leg.
It's also, just to put things into perspective, since our flash update on the 7th of April, the S&P 500's up 22%. The NASDAQ's up 29%. Bitcoin's up, as I had said earlier, 46%. Solana's up 84%. ETH is up 93%. And SUI's up 116%. And now the market's overbought. And that's all that's happening here. And the thing that I pointed out yesterday is that, when you think about like pure quant hedge funds, or whether they're momentum based or however you want to think about that, some of these funds go straight to net short on an overbought reading, right? So this is just profit taking. It's all it is. So the market's digesting the news. We're overbought. Certain people are, taking profit with the hope of buying a bit lower, whatever that is. So that's just why I think we're kind of chopping and people are waiting around for something to happen. But
yeah,
we're digesting a big move in markets.
And, it's really interesting to see how strong the ETH narrative comes back. Mm. And I've been saying it for a while, is like, people can write off ETH. They're ridiculous. ETH has enormous amounts going for it. And now we've seen this new MicroStrategies version by Joe Lubin of buying ETH. I also think the financial system uses ETH a lot more. And I think ETH outperforms Bitcoin all the rest of the cycle now. And that's not uncommon. So
if we're right about the ISM, then that's how it should play out.
That's right. And Solana should over time outperform ETH, but ETH's got catch up to do. So it's all correct. It will be corrective on that cross, but eventually Solana should outperform it and SUI should outperform Solana. I don't see any reason why any of that. In fact, I haven't looked at the SUI. Let me just share this. So this is the daily SUI SOL. This 13, I don't think actually is correct because it's below everything. Doesn't seem to make sense. So it looks like it's a corrective flag pattern. And then we should see the next push higher. So let's see if it looks any different than a weekly. No, I think this should be a corrective flag pattern. And then when we break higher, it'll be some sort of cup and handle or whatever. And that will push us to the next level, back up to maybe the highs. So I think everything looks as expected. I think it's going to be boring for a few days.
최근 시장은 일시적 조정 구간에 진입했지만 구조적으로는 여전히 강세 흐름이 이어지고 있음을 지적합니다. XRP는 현재 지루한 흐름에도 여전히 차트 구조상 폭발 가능성을 내포하고 있다 분석했고요. 비트코인 도미넌스는 고점을 찍고 하락세로 전환했으며 61.5% 이하로 내려올 경우 본격적으로 알트코인 시장이 시작될 수 있다고 예측했습니다. 특히 이더리움은 이번 사이클 후반에 비트코인을 아웃퍼폼할 가능성이 높고 이후엔 솔라나, 수이 순으로 강세 주도권이 이동할 것이란 관측도 제시됐습니다. 조정이 길지 않을 것으로 예상되는 만큼 당장의 잠잠한 시장을 장기적인 흐름 속 일부로 받아들이는 태도가 필요해 보입니다.
Anything else you're looking at, thinking about?
No, not really. As I said, I did my kind of brain dump yesterday.
I think that's it, guys. There's not much more to talk about. It's kind of everything's on track. Just a bit of overbought digestion. I think we should get that in equities at some point as well, because they've had this monstrous movement back to all-time highs there and thereabouts. You probably get a bit of congestion, a bit of profit taking, and then we get the leg higher. That leg higher should be, all of June should be strong. All of July should be strong. August should be more complicated, which is what we've been saying, which should be phase two of the correction of the banana zone. Let's see what happens from here. But I think steady as she goes is the general idea.
오늘 영상 도움이 되셨다면 구독, 좋아요 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.